Well, thank you all for joining us again for another installment of Grid Down Consulting's Patreon account here. Today we have the unmitigated pleasure of having a true hero along with us, General Ken Chrosniak. He's done a lot of different assignments, worked a lot of different places. He was over there in Vietnam. He did Kuwait. You were in Bosnia, Iraq. You were kind of in a bunch of different theaters during.
That's it so far, right?
That's it. Okay, I'll stop there.
Most of them are big ones. After I was retired, get a recall. But other than that, I don't think they'll call me up again. I can't fit into my uniform anymore. Things shrunk in the closet.
Well, your biggest fight is clearly on American soil in Washington D.C. You spent some time at the Pentagon. You were Chief of Staff at the Pentagon's Army Asymmetrical Warfare Unit there. And General Chrosniak and I met at the last Electromagnetic Defense Task Force down at the LeMay Wargaming Center in Maxwell Air Force Base. And you got to sit up at the big table up in the front. I was in the nosebleeds.
I tried to stay away from that, and then they said, "Come on up here." I said, "Okay, I'll go up there." I like this. That's the sergeant and me coming out.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in the background. This way, you're not within a grenade range of everybody else up there.
No, you deserve to be up there. But that was my first introduction to General Chrosniak here, and since then we've stayed in touch and we've stayed in communication. We've worked on a couple little projects together, and I mean, ultimately, you're working inside the wire. You've been a part of the stuff that happened down in San Antonio. For those of you that don't know, there is a pilot project for the military to help harden military bases, and it's kind of a working together with the civilian electric company down there to provide power to some of the military bases. So it's a pilot program, and they're doing great things, and they're looking at new technology.
That's
and
true.
Colonel Thumper is doing the best he can with what he's given down there. I think they've made a lot of headway so far, right?
And what's really great is that I finally know of an electric generation company, natural gas, CSP, that really cares about the lives of American people.
Because they're in Texas, that's why.
They're in Texas, which is their own republic, and it is. But they are going all out to protect San Antonio, the 11 military bases around it, and to be able to survive, at least to be able to provide electric power. They have all the potable water they could ever want right now, being where they are, with a high pressure potable water, practically. I think you had to put it through a Berkey water filter. But it's just a wonderful seeing an electric company when the majority, 99.85%, are more, let's just say, aren't as arduous in protecting the electric grid and protecting the lives of your family and your children.
That was very kindly put. Yes. I would.
Criminally negligent.
There you go.
Criminally negligent.
We'll go there because I would use different adjectives when discussing the bulk of the electric utility companies, and it's one of the things we want to discuss is what recently happened with NERC and FERC here a couple days ago. Again, to most of my followers, they're very familiar with Michael Mabee. I post a lot of articles from him. I mean, he's the tip of the spear.
Good command sergeant major.
Yeah, I mean,
he is.
The guy, unbelievably, he has a full-time job with the federal government, and he still makes time to.
I don't see how he does it.
I don't know how he does it, and he's doing it on the shoestring budget. But he's the tip of the spear. It's like David and Goliath against the electric utility
kitchen
companies.
food money is being spent.
Yeah, the grocery money exactly is being tapped. So the other amazing, great thing that you probably had the privilege to do was to brief the president as he was coming on the EMP threat. And
of course, Tommy Waller started even a year before that, so the president's known about this for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an opportunity with David Bellavia. I always say about the most recent, last year he got the Medal of Honor for the Second Battle of Fallujah, which there shouldn't have been a second battle, but I won't go there. And we briefed the candidate Trump in May of 2016, and he's very much aware of this. And then, of course, Dr. Peter Vincent Fry briefed him, and Dr. George Baker, he's on his staff now. He knows what the problems are and so on, and he's very well attuned to that. It's just, and that's therefore we have the executive order, 26 March 2019. What added money to it? That's an order, but there's no money. There's no bite to it. Now the National Defense Authorization Act passed with the president in 2019 that's supposed to appropriate money and tell these federal agencies what to do to protect the grid in any way and educate the American public. That part of the old Critical Infrastructure Protection Act from back when Obama signed it in 2017, of which the federal agencies ignored it then. And many of them are stonewalling now also.
On that front, I mean, we have a president that is clearly educated on the threat to the point where he was willing to, use political capital and do the executive order,
right.
And put that out there. And basically, the executive order, like you said, didn't have any teeth, didn't have any legislative teeth behind it. And we basically been looking from the outside in a lot of the swamp and a lot of these entrenched people at the DHS, DOD, DOE, and a lot of these interagencies that are supposed to be protecting us from the EMP threat and cyber attacks. A lot. We don't, we, me and you both, we take a step back from ascribing motive or, trying to really put people online. But I mean, some of the things that have been happening lately. So DHS released their report months and months and months late here.
Yeah.
Go ahead and I guess, in my opinion, from reading through it, it was an absolute farce. It was a kick the can down the road and we're going to start testing and doing some new testing to get some new testing.
And like you said, I like to say, when I mentioned to Michael Maybe and others, it's an insult to my intelligence to read those 13 pages.
13 pages.
There were a couple, everything is study, it's study, proposal, evaluate. That's all been done already. It's like when I used to work with Rumsfeld, I used to own his office and I carried I went in there with Admiral Holder. He has what they call the 80% solution. You formulate a plan and you throw it against the wall. If it almost sticks and it starts sliding down, you throw more money at it. What you do? You throw more information and all that at it. Will eventually stick to the wall. But right now we know the 90% solution. We know we've got to harden the nuclear power plants, the refineries, the food production, and the transformers and so on. It's irreplaceable. Everybody in the audience knows this already.
Yeah.
It's just that let's start doing it now because we already know this has been done with the EMP Commission report. All three of them, the 2004, 2008, 2017, which was by eminent nuclear electrical engineers like Dr. Baker, Radasky, Dr. Graham. And all of a sudden you listen to some of these pundits out there that are like the EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute, which, by the way, they have members from, voting members from China and Russia. We have our enemy forces out there right now arrayed against us. And I'll get back to our conversation. But I start getting heated when it comes to that because they're kicking the can down the road, these federal agencies.
That's been the MO all the way back to Bush. I mean, let's be honest.
It's
Bush through Obama, through even Trump to a degree now. I mean, Trump did what he could through Clinton, through all these different presidential campaigns. They have known about this threat. They are aware of the threat. Russia and China are hardening their grids. We know this. We know that they've hardened their stuff.
Eastern grid.
Yep, and they're taking steps. And I mean, the next step in this kind of linear thinking, I talk about a lot. I know in the circles that you run. It's not something that's really brought up a lot, but quantum computing is coming in the next couple of years. So the cyber attacks that we're experiencing could get a lot worse and a lot more dangerous in the near future. In AI and what that entails in the next 5 years, the physical attacks. We just had U.S. government has recently arrested several individuals acting on the behalf of the government of Iran and Hezbollah, who have conducted surveillance indicative of contingency planning for lethal attacks. This is a new DHS report just came out yesterday. We know they're threatening physical attacks. It just seems like there's so many threats in this neighborhood, and everybody's just ignoring it. It's just this is like America's Achilles heel, and
it's like the FERC, the Federal Electric Reliability Commission, not corporation like the NERC.
Yeah.
But it's when Cheryl LaFleur, one of the commissioners of the FERC, stated that kind of openly, she shouldn't have said it, but she said it, that there's 9 substations, mega substations, that if those are hit with either cyber or physical or coordinated cyber physical attack, which By the way, cyber is physical because it moves switches and so on, so it's actually a physical attack. That they can take down pretty much the nation's grid. And the eastern grid is probably the most important. The other one's pretty sparse. Anyway, the Senate went crazy with that. You shouldn't have said that, but now it's widely known. But even the Quds Force commander, I forgot the name of the two-star general, some clown, the Quds Force, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. He said there's not only 9, there's 40 of them, and we know where they all are.
That's right.
And I won't give my source out on that, but there's about 40 of them, and we've been reconned, we've been surveilled. They know exactly where those substations are, and they're not protected at all. Even small arms fire or mortars. The
Metcalf substation in California was a perfect example. They brought in the Navy warfare unit to come in to specialize.
SEALs.
They brought them in to survey that, and they found when I read that report, there were like triangle-shaped piles of rocks from the firing locations.
Yeah.
Where and that's what they use over in the Middle East for shooting for shooting positions. So there's a lot of information that you and I, just because of the great work by Tommy Wally, Secure the Grid Coalition, Michael Mabey, Dr. Peter Pry, Henry Cooper. There's a lot of yourself, General Chrosniak still in this to a degree, and Major Stockenberg. There's a lot of people that are still fighting the fight, but man, I really, I'm typically kind of canned in the pessimistic side of things, where a lot of people are optimistic. I'm trying to be optimistic, but
it's like you said in all of your wonderful books, and you always plan for the worst case situation.
Yeah.
Believe me, I won't go there, but it's literally kept me alive a couple times. You plan for the worst case situation, and everything else falls out. Everything else is easy. You plan for what we call branches and sequels. You go towards an objective. You plan, what would the enemy do? Well, what do you think? You don't think like I gotta be nice. You don't think like an Asian or a Russian, because they have a different mentality.
They do.
They think differently. We do in our Western, Clausewitzian, Prussian, Greco-Roman style or whatever. They think differently. They're grown up to. Even the Persians and the Arabs think differently than each other. That's why the Arabs are more on our side right now with Israel and so on. Anyway, I'm talking about too many things, but you always plan for the worst case situation.
Yeah.
And that's what we used to tell. We briefed to President Trump, then candidate Trump. Like when he asked, how much is it to harden the 350 transformers? And we go, and David Bellavia and I are looking at each other, and we go, he said, give me a ballpark number. Okay, $5 billion. He said, that's doable, because that's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not dust, but it's pretty darn close to it.
Compared to what we just did for COVID,
trillions. And he said, how much did it harden the entire grid? And we said, thinking worst case, you can't. It's impossible, the entire grid. But we said 50 billion, I think we told him. And he said, that's doable. He said, why don't we make the transformers here? And it started a whole list of questions that they sent us later, because we only had 10 minutes. Anyway,
but that's a good thing about the president. He sees common sense solutions to a lot of these problems. I mean, almost all of our high voltage transformers come from Germany and South Korea, come from overseas. Yeah. There's a 12 to 18 month lead time. Why aren't we making them here?
They're handmade.
They're handmade, hand windings. Sometimes they can't get the raw materials.
Glass, copper, electric wire was just only made in China now, I think.
They weigh 400 tons. It takes for, even once they get to our shore, it takes crazy stuff to even get them to the location.
It takes several months to plan the logistics to move them. And if you try to replace a transformer, which are specifically phased in the electric grid system, the step up and step down transformers, you just don't throw in take it out of the box. It has to be phased in perfectly, whether it's step up or step down. Yeah. And a lot of those areas now, let's just say the railroads are not jogging trails. You can't, it's impossible to get another transformer up there.
Yeah. And basically, that's where the EMP Commission and a lot of the insiders here are at, is that there are steps that we can take, just easy steps to say, hey, let's start doing this, and this, because you're right, we can't protect every aspect of the American electric grid, all the way down to the transformer at the end of your street there. We can't protect everything.
No.
But if we protect the high voltage transformers, some of the power plants, some of the dams, we have a fighting chance of getting power up in a reasonable amount of time. Because me and you have discussed this in length. I mean, if we lose a national electric grid and it goes for more than a couple weeks,
But not only the electric grid, not only the power generation, transmission, distribution,
Mhm.
you have to have, when you produce power, you have to have a load. So you got to be able to protect whatever you can at the lower end of the spectrum, because if you don't have a load, it just goes to ground.
Yeah.
Especially, let's use another example is the nuclear power plant. David Bellavia told me this. I haven't. There's 21 lines leaving the Niagara Falls, the Robert Moses Parkway, hydroelectric plant here, which produces a lot of power, along with the Canadian. I was going to say Canadian.
It's up there at Niagara Falls, right?
Niagara Falls, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's one of the 21 lines goes down to, I believe it's South Carolina or North Carolina, to bring power to a nuclear power plant down there. You have to have load.
Yeah.
So, but I think if it came right down to it, when the president asked to completely protect the power grid, I think he was thinking like, in fact, he even mentioned, can we put everything underground? That's what he was thinking. He thinks outside the box.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but he produced a lot of heat with a transformer. Like he's mentioned Cheyenne Mountain. I said, well, Cheyenne Mountain's going to be without food after about a year ago anyway. Everybody will be in trouble. But the bottom line, what we told them, planning worst case, is that a lot of people are going to die anyway.
Yeah.
Millions are going to die,
Yeah.
especially in urban areas. You got to plant urban, suburban, rural, and each one of them is going to have their own set of difficulties. So coming up with one blanket course of action.
Yeah.
There's other courses of action. You don't want to live in an urban area unless you have, like you say, start planning proactively for bug out. It's a myriad of problem sets that we can solve now.
Really appreciate you being with me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the time in town here. I think you're going to lunch with David Bellavia.
David Bellavia,
Yeah,
I haven't seen him since the White House, or the Pentagon in the White House.
Yeah.
It'd be nice seeing him. It's been over a year.
Good.
And
well, again, I appreciate you coming in today and speaking with me,
thank you.
and we'll be in touch, and I'll be in touch with all you guys out there that are listening in. So again, thank you very much for your service, and thank you for being here today.
Stay safe.
Yeah.